Hello, and welcome to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. I'm your host, Tori Rerick, PharmD and holistic healer. Each episode features a candid conversation about how connecting with the cannabis plant has enhanced an individual's wellness journey. Here to honor the plant, talk about healing, and have fun. Today's episode features Jackie, a cannabis dosage specialist who uses cannabis to manage her anxiety and incurable autoimmune disease. She is an enthusiast of cannabis for pleasure and serves the plant by reframing cannabis as a friend through education and constructive conversation. Keep listening for a discussion emphasizing the trustworthiness of cannabis as a healer and the art of speaking about the plant to the public. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today we have on Jackie Waple, and Jackie is a cannabis educator with a passion to empower women to overcome the stigma and embrace the healing power of cannabis. Cheers to that. She is proud to have led well over 1,000 individuals in their CBD wellness journeys. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
We are finally getting to do this. We have been connecting on and off the last few years, pretty much connected through hemp, through cannabis. And I've watched you grow the hemp force, and now you're with Equilibria. So I'm so excited to have a conversation today.
Yes, me too. This is awesome.
So to loosen everyone up, I thought we'd choose a card. I'd like to do a little icebreaker with Oracle. And so I'm choosing a card from the Follow Your Heart Oracle deck. It's highly inspired. Wink, wink. And so I want to hear how you can make a connection back to cannabis with that card, or maybe how cannabis helped you to understand that meaning. And interestingly enough, today we pulled the card painted for cannabis, which is prosperity, which is being taken care of. So I'd love to hear your perspective on prosperity and cannabis.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so many connections that I immediately make. And abundance is... You can look at abundance in so many different lenses. So you can be abundantly well. Wellness is abundance. And I do really think that, well, I know that cannabis has helped me on my wellness journey and, you know, my physical and mental wellness journey, and has brought me prosperity in that way and healing. And, you know, we can also look at my career. I make a living from cannabis and the beautiful abundance that she brings me in that way. And it's such a deep part of my life now. And everything I have is connected in some way back to this plant.
I love that answer because it kind of leads us into the next question, which is of perception. But like prosperity isn't just money, which is like normally everyone's first go-to, but exactly what you said, like health, wellness, your joy, your emotions, there's your connections, the people you love, like there's so many avenues. And I think cannabis opens us up to all these different perspectives of maintaining that. So speaking of, what was your original perception of cannabis and has it shifted?
Oh my gosh. So I grew up in the middle of Pennsylvania, in Amish country. So
I was like, what does the middle mean? But okay.
The middle means, we call it Pennsyltucky. No offense to Kentucky. But there wasn't a whole lot of exposure to respect of cannabis. It was very judgmental. And so I always assumed that it wasn't healing. It was maybe numbing. It was maybe on par with alcohol. And I didn't really see that there was a place for it ever, anywhere. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't think there was any medical use for it. And I thought it was just for people who wanted to get high. And, you know, in hindsight, what's wrong with that? Right?
So that
I think there's a lot of judgment behind someone seeking pleasure. And I now see that we should not judge someone who is seeking pleasure or an elevated experience. It's a whole thing. But like, I now see it as this multifaceted healer. She has her own spirit that's been with us, since we've existed as humans. And, the first human settlements, there is evidence of cultivating cannabis or, at least utilizing cannabis. And, I now see that there's a place for her clinically, spiritually, socially, recreationally.
Like, she's everywhere.
Right. She truly is. And as long as there is that level of respect, like we would respect a human who is helping us to heal, it's a beautiful thing. She's a beautiful spirit.
Okay, so I feel like this requires a follow-up question. Like, that was like a cute professional answer, but what happened in between? When were you like, oh, this is like cool. This is totally fine. This is
right. Great question. So college, I think we're all exposed to these things in college. And I kind of saw like my friends using it, and my friends were intelligent and they were not slacking. They weren't the stereotype. They were just people. And I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. And then I tried it, and it's not scary. And I felt very myself, and then I began to learn how to respect it. And I was studying environmental science at the time, huge science nerd, huge nature nerd. And I really wanted to learn what was happening and why it was helping so many people and why it was making me feel the way it was making me feel. And it just kind of spiraled from there in a great way.
On the line of that, like, how did you find that cannabis serves you, or how does it serve you now?
So I use it to help me manage my anxiety and to manage incurable autoimmune disease, and to just really be present and take a step back and observe from a different perspective. There really is that level of elevation. You're taken a little bit above your current state of here and now. Sometimes if you choose to, and if you choose to be introspective and to explore that aspect, it can be really, really insightful, but in a very supportive manner. And I think that that's super important, especially in managing my anxiety, because I'm learning that it's truly what's here and now, because what's tomorrow, we can't control. And, what's next year, we can't control. And ultimately, the things that are important are here and now, and love and joy and all those good, happy things that make us human.
Yeah, I feel that 100%. That had me like thinking of how beautiful the world is,
right?
And, feeling really good. But I mean, again, it's like, thank you, cannabis, for those things. But when you're feeling it, it's kind of lonely. You wonder if it's always going to be this way. And like for me, and maybe you feel this way too, it's like cannabis is your ally for this. Like it might not ever go away, but this is a tool for managing that, or being in a different relationship with that, like anxiety or dis-ease or chronic condition. Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And you don't turn to cannabis to like necessarily heal you from something forever. You look at it as a tool to help you be the best version of yourself in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's important. That adds up. That's this law of attraction situation we have going on.
Yeah. And in that, and of course, if we're going to look at cannabis as a medicine, like pharmacologically speaking, it's so complex, and there's so much going on and so many different phytochemicals. But just as a human experience and what you are able to pull from your experience with cannabis, it's just so supportive in helping you return to yourself and return to your body and understand what's important,
Agreed. And so how do you serve the plant?
Yes. So I, of course, do my best every day, whether it be professionally in my work or, in my personal life. I'm always trying to break that stigma that it's still facing, very unfairly, like a lot of things in life. But I try very hard to make cannabis a friend and an ally and a supporter instead of kind of like I perceived it in the beginning, this numbing agent, which it is not. It can be if you abuse it and if you do not respect it, just like anything. But I work every day to break that stigma and to educate and empower people to at least see cannabis as an option. And
I think that you've been really successful in that, Jackie, like making cannabis accessible to people through education and through conversation. Everything you were doing with the hemp force and have been doing, like I saw people turn to you and trust you and be able to rely on you. And that's what is needed in order to break the stigma and in order to help people feel comfortable with the plant. So thank you.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you. Look at you.
Look at that. So what are the avenues that you help people with that?
So I work for Equilibria, which is a luxury CBD company based out of Chicago. I work as a dosage specialist. So basically, I work with our members or our customers to help them build a routine that fits their goals and their lifestyle and is very, very personalized and individualized. And I answer questions and really work with each person individually to make them feel comfortable and supported and, safe using cannabis as a support. And right now, of course, federally we have CBD, but that is the way that I do that professionally. I also offer some services through Hemp Force. It's kind of more on an ask me basis, if that makes sense. I'm of course casual. It's casual. Those who want to work with me, I definitely make it a priority to come up with a plan to work together. And then, in my personal life, I'm always
talk about that.
Yeah, I'm always answering questions. It's really interesting because whenever I talk about what I do, there's almost always a person, and it's usually a man who it's like, oh, you're a dealer. I'm like, what do you? First of all, sir, sit down. But like it's really interesting because that is not. It's really kind of. It's jarring when that happens, but it's also an opportunity to compassionately educate.
Perspective. Again, it's like, okay, met with some resistance and some judgment. Let me show you how the plant does it, which is like acceptance and conversation and sharing. So let's just like set this
exactly.
right.
That first gut instinct is my ego being like,
yeah,
dude, who do you think you are? But I do always approach it from an aspect or a perspective of what can I give this person to take away from this conversation that's constructive and that works towards breaking the stigma. And it's usually just very basic cannabis education, because once you show this type of person, that, and no shade, that there is a science to it, and it's not, as they would usually say, smoking weed and getting high, which again, why are we judging that? But still, that there is this very intricate science that we will take a very long time to understand, if we ever do, because, as you know, there is so much to this. It kind of humbles them a little bit. It humbles me every day to understand that I will never fully understand in my lifetime, how this works. So,
but trusting that.
Right. But trusting, not understanding how it works doesn't mean that it is bad or scary. It just means that there's opportunity to learn and to grow with it and to have faith in it. And in that way, it's another very spiritual aspect of cannabis, right? Like we trust that it's not going to harm us because we at least know that much. But we don't know everything about all of those phytochemicals and how they're working on every single receptor throughout our endocannabinoid system. And, that's a little bit of faith and trust too.
What you said just like really struck me in a way it never has before, of this idea of being a healer. And that's one of the reasons that I went into pharmacy. Is they're like the number one trusted health profession. People trust their pharmacists. Like, that's dope to me. And that's what cannabis is able to do, because it's first do no harm, right? When you're in the medical industry. So cannabis is like giving us that promise of like, unless it's some like extreme, interesting case, like it's going to be there. It can be trusted. And I love that you're a part of that voice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's going to take so many of us, and it's going to take a lot of time and persistence, but it's definitely worth it to create a world where she is respected.
Cool. Thank you for that. Okay. So what cannabis question do you get asked the most? And then obviously what's your answer?
Yeah. So, of course I get asked about what I do, which we just talked about. And I would say at work, professionally, what I am asked the most is, what does it help with and how does it do that? Which, like we just said, it's so complex. And so to address that, I kind of talk a little bit in more professional terms, of course, a little bit about, what I just said. Like, we know it does assist and support and help manage these symptoms of these countless ailments, and supports, our overall wellness and can improve our quality of life. But it's so complex and we're still learning. But, this is the very basic aspect of what we know now. And, of course I couldn't go over everything on the phone in one call. So I kind of choose, the beginner introduction to the ECS. And that usually brings some comfort and some understanding that was not there before.
It's just so amazing. And that, honestly, I'm just making so many connections with being a pharmacist. It's like, give them reassurance. Like, this is what we know. This is what I can tell you. Because even with all of the other questions that come, like, what are the side effects? How is it going to affect me? There are variables, but like, here's what I know. And that's only what I know. You also have to have your experience with it. And exactly what you said, it gives them something to feel comfortable with and work with, besides just the fear that they originally maybe came to the table with.
Totally. It's an art. This is talking about cannabis to the public. It's an art. It really is.
Cool. Again, look at us. All right. So Jackie, what cannabis resources do you recommend? Obviously you are like the cannabis resource, but what do you share with people?
So if you are looking for a full-blown course on, any aspect of cannabis, whether it be, business or cannabis medicine or cultivation, I love Green Flower Media courses. Tori, have you ever heard of them? Or
I have.
Yeah. Really, really great. And of course, Project CBD is another pretty good one. And if you're interested in reading articles from scientific journals, any work of Dr. Ethan Russo is great. I love reading his work. And of course, Leafly. It's always a good one.
Sometimes you just got to get to it.
Yep, sometimes.
And so what are your specific resources? You've created resources for cannabis as well.
Yeah, so I have an ebook, which you reviewed for me very graciously, which is, the very, very beginner's guide, which you should never be embarrassed for being a beginner because we were all beginners. And that is a great place to start. I also have a website called Planet Canna, which I think we'll probably link. That one was really fun. That was actually my capstone project for my degree. Yeah. Yeah.
Groovy.
Super cool. It was really interesting to study cannabis, or at least look at it from an academic lens. I got a little time to do that in college, which was really, really fun.
That's the way to do it. Do it how you want to do it.
Right, right. And I'm so grateful that I had that flexibility and professors who were not super judgy about it. Mm-hmm. They're like, sure, Jackie, just make sure there's some agriculture in there. And I said, oh, don't you worry. Yeah. And so those are my two main resources. I do love to post a lot of cannabis education on my social media, on the Hemp Force, and a little bit on my personal as well. But those are the main ones.
Incredible. You're doing such amazing work. It's been a pleasure to chat with you this morning.
Yes, this was amazing. I'm so glad we got the time to do this.
And so one final question, where do the people find you? Did you just say your handle?
Yeah. So my personal handle on Instagram is at naturally.jackie. And then my Hemp Force one is just at the Hemp Force. And I am on both of those. So feel free to reach out. I really look forward to that.
Okay, amazing. Please reach out to Jackie. Obviously, she's so easy to talk to, and we'll see you online. Thank you so much for tuning in to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. If you connected with this episode, please share it with a friend who would benefit from hearing it too. Tap the subscribe button to be notified when the next 6 Degrees episode is released. You can find more information about holistic healing, the Follow Your Heart Oracle deck, and what I do by visiting ToriRerick.com. If you message us on Instagram at 6 Degrees from Cannabis, we'll be sure to message you back. Bliss be with you.